It's Thursday, June 17th, and it's time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Some of this country's leading promoters are seemingly up in arms over an apparent government decision to scrap this year's Crop Over Festival, ban all party cruises, and allow limited land events with no more than 150 patrons. Our Karim Smith has a full report.
Sources close to the situation reveal that the plans were shared during an industry meeting on Tuesday that was chaired by Prime Minister Mia Mottley and included key officials from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the National Cultural Foundation. In addition to the cumbersome restrictions on the floundering industry, Barbados Today has also learned that unvaccinated patrons must be COVID-19 PCR tested within 48 hours of each of the scaled-down events. In response to concerns about the profitability of events if reduced to such small numbers, authorities have also floated the idea of offering a $5,000 grant to assist promoters. In response, some promoters declare that cruise operators, promoters of events on land, and even artists are victims of a biased framework of COVID-19 protocols. They explain that the reduced numbers are simply too low for promoters to break even and are questioning the motives of authorities in the face of robust debate about an apparent difference in treatment of local promoters when compared with their overseas counterparts. Even more puzzling to some is the administration's policy on cruises, which have been banned across the board. Nevertheless, the measures seem much more consistent with the advice from the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, which last week shared a long list of protocols for the festival based on their professional analysis. Karim Smith for Barbados Today.
Members of the National Union of Public Workers will vote today on whether incumbent President Akani McDowell should be elected as the union's first Secretary General. However, the gap between the opposing factions on the controversial petition signed by 138 members appears to be widening ahead of the vote. Emmanuel Joseph has more.
A member of the union's policy-making body, the National Council, who did not want to be identified, is adamant that this resolution they described as unconstitutional should be defeated in an effort to save the integrity of the union. At the same time, the member is encouraging all others to go out this afternoon to vote against the motion. However, they are confident that most members of the National Council of the NUPW do not support the move by a small number of the union's 6,500 members to install the president as Secretary General. The public officer has branded the petition as unscrupulous and unethical, and if successful, will lead to organizational collapse and destroy the soul of the NUPW. Barbados Today also obtained a copy of a poster on the official letterhead of the NUPW, which, while advertising today's meeting, is also advising members to reject the resolution. The flyer, which this media house understands was put out by the staff of the union, states, "Say no to this resolution by coming out Thursday at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center at 5 p.m. and vote against this resolution." Third Vice President of the union, Kimberly Agard, who will be challenging McDowell for presidency in next month's January election, also expressed her expectations for today's meeting. Agard is of the view that the fate of the NUPW lies in the hands of the members and that whatever decision is made, she hopes that the members will take responsibility for their actions so that the union can move forward in a positive way afterwards. Another member who's coming up against McDowell next month also weighed in on the prospects of the meeting. Fabian Jones, a member of the National Council, anticipates a large turnout but believes the motion will be defeated. Emmanuel Joseph, Barbados Today.
The director of the Pan American Health Organization has urged the G7 nations to make Latin America and the Caribbean a priority when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines. Dr. Caricia Etienne's appeal follows a recent promise by those nations to donate 1 billion doses to countries in need. During her weekly media briefing, she pointed out that countries that are suffering the most should be at the front of the line when it comes to the delivery of doses.
Over the weekend, leaders from the Group of Seven pledged 1 billion COVID vaccine doses for countries in need around the world. This promise brings fresh confidence that we will overcome the supply barriers that have prevented many nations and territories in our region from getting the doses that they need to protect their populations. Today, less than 1 in 10 people in Latin America and the Caribbean have been fully vaccinated against COVID. Yet, we are a region of more than 600 million people where cases are mounting, hospitals are full, and variants are rapidly circulating. So while vaccines are needed everywhere, we hope that the G7 nations will prioritize doses for countries at greatest risk, especially those in Latin America that have not yet had access to enough vaccines to even protect the most vulnerable. These doses cannot come soon enough, so we urge G7 countries not to delay their donations. We need the vaccines now.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
News from our regional neighbors now. The St. Kitts Nevis government has declared a state of emergency as the country grapples with an increase in COVID-19 cases in recent days. According to a government statement, the Governor General issued the proclamation declaring the state of emergency, which will remain in place until July 6th. Meantime, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Lewis on Tuesday gave a breakdown of the number of COVID-19 cases recorded in the past few days.
June the 16th, we have received results for 7 cases. So we've received positive results for 7 cases. Yesterday, Tuesday, June 15th, we received results for 18 cases. On Monday, we received 17 positive results. On Sunday, we received 9 positive results. Last Saturday, we received 13 positive results. So if you look on the slide, on the graph on the right, you see the actual number of cases returning positive results per day over this past week. And so you realize there was a peak last Friday, the 11th of June. And so let me repeat. We've added 206 cases to our tally over this past 4 weeks.
And finally, domestic workers are still fighting for recognition as workers and essential service providers 10 years after the adoption of an historic International Labour Organization convention that confirmed their labor rights. That's according to a new ILO report, which also revealed that working conditions of many of those workers have not improved in a decade and have been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic.
What we've seen with the pandemic is that domestic workers have lost their jobs in greater numbers than others, or they've had their working time reduced more than others. So they've been hit harder in numerical terms. But looking underneath those numbers, what does it mean? Well, it can mean that domestic workers, because many of them live in the homes of the people they work for, they may have lost their place to live. They may have lost their home. Many of these workers are migrant workers, so their status within a country may be called into question. They may be stranded. So this is very quickly where the drama, and it's always a drama, of losing your job becomes almost a humanitarian problem, a problem simply of how do you get by, how do you survive. It exposes the underlying vulnerabilities and lack of protection which too frequently afflict these workers.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.